Hi everyone, my name is Brooke and I work for the Region of Waterloo Library. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make paper mache pumpkins. The materials included in your take-home kit include fiber fill, newspaper, tape, white glue, some pieces of yarn, a plastic bag, and orange and brown paint. In addition to the materials provided in your kit, you'll also need a jar or glass, a pair of scissors, a 1/4 cup measuring cup, some paint brushes, a whisk or fork, a bowl or something to mix in, and saran wrap to cover that bowl, and a cookie tray or a tablecloth or just something to cover your work surface. The first step of the project is to put the fiber fill in the plastic bag in order to form the pumpkin. Spend a couple seconds just adjusting the shape and making sure you're happy with it. When you are happy with the rough shape, you can twist the bag and squeeze out any air that might be in it. And then once it's twisted, you're going to tie a knot. And when you're pulling the knot tight, make sure you're squeezing out any remaining air. Once you're happy with your pumpkin's shape, you're going to cut a couple inches above the knot in order to form the pumpkin's stem. Next, take your masking tape and tape it around the stem of the pumpkin in order to give it structure. I find this stem a little long, so I'm going to just bend it over and tape it down a bit. The next step is to tie yarn around your pumpkin to give it ridges. To do this, take a piece of yarn and wrap it around the base of your pumpkin. Tie a knot at the top and pull tight. It starts to form ridges along the sides. Once you're happy with it, tie another knot to secure it. Then you can cut off the excess yarn. We're going to add 3 more pieces of yarn in order to create lots of ridges in the pumpkin. When you're done tying your yarn, it should look something like this. You can always make some little adjustments if you need to, like tucking in pieces of plastic like this one. At this point, make sure you're happy with the shape of your pumpkin. Once you're happy with your pumpkin shape, it's time to start paper macheing. The first step is to create our glue mixture by mixing 1/2 cup of glue, or this entire container, and 1/4 cup of water into a mixing bowl and stirring it to combine. The next step is to tear your newspaper into small strips. They can be various different shapes and sizes, so don't worry too much about it. Once your glue mixture and newspaper are prepared, we can start paper macheing. I would suggest working on a cookie tray or putting a tablecloth or newspaper down in order to protect your work surface. I would also remove any rings or bracelets that might get in the way, as it is a messy process. We're going to start by paper macheing the top and stem of the pumpkin. To do this, take your first piece of newspaper and fully submerge it into your glue mixture. You want to make sure both sides are coated, and then you're going to take your fingers and squeeze off any of the excess glue. So you just want a thin layer of glue on your newspaper. Once you're ready, you can place it anywhere on your pumpkin. And then smooth it out with your fingers so it gets into the ridges. Just like that. Then you can grab your next piece of newspaper and continue the process. Fully dip. Use your fingers to squeeze off the excess glue. Then add it onto your pumpkin. Using your fingers again to smooth it down into any ridges. Make sure you put the newspaper different directions. This helps make the structure more sound. Once you've covered the top of the pumpkin, do the stem. Once you've covered the stem and the top of your pumpkin, you're going to flip it over and put it in a jar or glass. This way you can cover the bottom of the pumpkin with paper mache. Once everything is covered, just double check that you didn't miss any spots. Once you're done, set your pumpkin aside to dry for about 24 hours or until hard to the touch. If you think of it, about halfway through the drying process, take your pumpkin off your glass or jar so the stem can dry as well. You can also cover your glue with some saran wrap or a towel, as we're going to use it again in 24 hours when we put our second layer of paper mache on our pumpkin. After 24 hours, or once your pumpkin is fully dry and hard to the touch, you can add your second layer of paper mache. You may need to add a little bit more water to your glue in order to thin it out again. Just like last time, we're going to start by paper macheing the top and the stem of the pumpkin. So fully dip in your piece of newspaper, wipe off any excess glue, and stick it onto your pumpkin. And just like the first time, once you're finished with the top and the stem, flip it over, place it in a jar or glass, and then continue to do the bottom. Once you've completely paper macheed your pumpkin, you just want to take a look and see if you see any gaps or holes or any places where the paper isn't fully sticking down, like here. And maybe add a couple more pieces of paper mache just so those are flattened down. Once you're finished adding your second layer of paper mache, you can set your pumpkin aside to dry for 24 hours or until completely hard. And just like last time, if you remember, try to remove the pumpkin from the jar at some point so the stem has a chance to dry as well. And at this point, you can discard your glue or any leftover newspaper, as we won't be adding any more layers of paper mache. Once your second layer of paper mache is completely dry and hard to the touch, it is time to paint your pumpkin. For my pumpkin, it took about 4 coats of orange paint to get full coverage. After you're done painting the base of your pumpkin, you can move on to painting your stem. My stem took about 3 coats to have full coverage. And once you're happy with your stem, you can add some details onto the top of the pumpkin to look like the base of the stem. And that's how you make a paper mache pumpkin. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching. Bye!